Have you ever imagined buying your dream home and discovering it has an owner who died over a century ago? Marcus Ashford, a billionaire accustomed to getting everything he wants, thought he was just making another deal of a lifetime, until a mysterious housekeeper turned his world upside down with an impossible claim that would forever change his understanding of true love, destiny, and what's truly worthwhile in this life. This isn't just an impossible love story between past and present. It's a breathtaking revelation about how sometimes we need to lose everything we think is important to discover what truly has value. Chapter 1. Marcus Ashford had everything money could buy. But on that rainy October afternoon, he sought something different, a place where he could throw the grandest party New York had ever seen. When his eyes landed on Willowbrook Mansion, abandoned for decades atop the hill, his heart raced with that sense of discovery that only true collectors know. The property was perfect, almost magical, with its dusty, stained-glass windows reflecting the evening light, as if guarding secrets of a true love lost in time. It was exactly the setting he needed to impress investors, celebrities, and consolidate his empire. An environment that breathed history, mystery, and that touch of forbidden romance that would make any guest feel part of something unforgettable. The purchase was quick, almost impulsive, like an emotional marriage proposal made under the stars, without thinking about the consequences. 2 weeks later, when Marcus arrived to inspect his new acquisition, he found something that wasn't in the transaction papers. A woman of simple appearance, around 60 years old, meticulously cleaning the second-floor windows. She turned when she heard his footsteps echoing through the empty hall, and for an instant Marcus swore he saw a gleam in her eyes that seemed to traverse generations, carrying all the intensity of an impossible love story. "Can I help you?" she asked with a soft but firm voice, as if she were the one who belonged to that place and not him. Marcus explained he was the new owner, expecting the woman to apologize and leave. But what she said next made his world stop. New owner. How interesting, because this house has been mine since 1899. The absurdity of the statement hung in the air like smoke from old candles, creating an atmosphere both comic and disturbing. Marcus let out a nervous laugh, that kind of laughter that escapes when you don't know if you're facing an elaborate joke or something genuinely disturbing. The woman, who introduced herself only as Eleanor, continued her cleaning as if she had said nothing extraordinary, moving through the mansion with a familiarity that only decades, or perhaps centuries, could provide. Every corner, every creaking floorboard, every shadow cast by the old chandeliers seemed to respond to her touch in an almost supernatural way, as if the house recognized its true owner in a love reunion story between person and place. Marcus watched, torn between calling security and satisfying that growing curiosity burning in his chest. The same feeling we get when we find old love letters in our grandparents' attic and can't stop reading. There was something about that woman, in the way she caressed the furniture covered with white sheets, that suggested this would not be a common property invasion story, but rather the beginning of something breathtaking, touching, and impossible to explain by logic. Chapter 2. In the following days, Marcus couldn't get Eleanor out of his head, and that irritated him deeply. After all, billionaires don't lose sleep over mysterious housekeepers who claim to be over 100 years old. He returned to the mansion 3 times that week, always with the excuse of checking the party preparations. But deep down, he knew he was seeking answers to that enigma that challenged his entire logical understanding of the world. Eleanor was always there, polishing the same oak balustrade, arranging the same burgundy velvet curtains, as if fulfilling a sacred ritual that transcended time. A silent dance between past and present, reminiscent of those impossible love stories where lovers are separated by centuries. She never showed haste, never asked for anything, just existed in that space with a serenity that made Marcus question who was really the intruder there. There was something heartwarming about the way she treated each object, each piece of furniture, as if they were old friends in a love reunion story he didn't yet fully comprehend. Marcus decided to investigate on his own, diving into the city's historical archives like someone searching for clues to a hidden treasure that could change everything. What he discovered made his blood run cold. There was indeed an Eleanor Whitmore registered as the original owner of Willowbrook Mansion, born in 1875 and disappeared under mysterious circumstances in 1899, exactly on her 24th birthday. Old photographs showed a young woman of breathtaking beauty, with the same penetrating eyes that Marcus instantly recognized. They were the eyes of the woman cleaning his mansion, just aged by the weight of decades that shouldn't exist. The documents spoke of a great love, a tragically broken engagement, an emotional marriage proposal that never materialized because the suitor died in a carriage accident on the eve of the wedding. Eleanor, according to reports from that time, was never seen again after that night, as if she had been swallowed by sadness itself in a true love story interrupted by cruel destiny. When Marcus confronted Eleanor with the documents, he expected any reaction: denial, surprise, even fear, but certainly not the soft, melancholic smile she offered him. "And you finally understood," she said, slowly sitting in an old armchair that seemed molded especially for her body, as if she had occupied it thousands of times before. "I didn't lie, Marcus. May I call you that? This house has been mine since 1899, because that year I made a choice." Her voice carried a weight that traversed generations, each word pronounced with the precision of someone who told that story to themselves countless times in lonely dawns. Eleanor explained that, on the night she lost her great love, she begged the universe, the heavens, any force that could hear her. She asked to never have to leave the house where they had planned to build a life together, the place where every corner held promises of a happy ending that never came, and somehow, inexplicable, touching, and absolutely impossible, her request was granted. Chapter 3. The revelation changed everything between Marcus and Eleanor, creating a strange but genuine intimacy, like that which exists between two shipwreck survivors that only they can understand. In the following weeks, while party preparations advanced with decorator teams transforming the mansion into a dream palace, Marcus spent hours talking with Eleanor about her past, and the more he listened, the more his heart opened to that love story that seemed straight out of an impossible romance. She told about candlelit balls, about love letters written by hand and delivered by messengers, about the feeling of wearing long dresses that brushed the polished wooden floor while dancing waltzes with the man she considered her soulmate. Eleanor described everything with such palpable nostalgia that Marcus could almost see those ghosts from the past circulating through the room, living their interrupted lives in a parallel dimension that only she could access. It was impossible not to be touched by that woman who chose eternity alongside memories, instead of moving forward without her true love. Marcus began to notice subtle changes in himself. That kind of silent transformation that happens when you're exposed to something much larger than your limited reality allows you to comprehend. He, who always measured success in numbers and acquisitions, now found himself watching the sunset through the mansion's stained glass, marveled by the colored light patterns that Eleanor said were time's signatures. His grand party, that event that should crown his business triumphs and consolidate his position among the elite, began to seem superficial compared to the emotional depths he was discovering in those conversations with a woman who had traversed more than a century for love. Marcus never believed in destiny, in signs from the universe, or in those long-distance love stories that defy time and space. But Eleanor was there, living proof that there are forces in this world that money can't buy and logic can't explain. He found himself thinking, had he found that property by chance, or had he been guided there to learn something fundamental that his billionaire life had never taught him? The party was rapidly approaching, but Marcus was no longer sure he wanted it to happen. After all, it would mean bringing hundreds of strangers inside that sacred space that Eleanor had guarded with such love for over a century. One afternoon, while supervising the installation of imported crystal chandeliers, he suddenly stopped and wondered, what if Eleanor disappears when the house fills with people? What if the presence of all these guests breaks the delicate spell that keeps her here? The possibility terrified him in a way he couldn't rationally explain, as if he had found something rare and precious, a genuine connection in a world of superficialities, and was about to lose it through pure social greed. Eleanor, always perceptive, noticed his growing anxiety and told him something that would be engraved in his memory as the wisest words he had ever heard. Marcus, you can't live in fear of losing what you love. I learned that the hardest way possible. Chapter 4. The night of the party arrived like an inevitable storm, bringing limousines, gala dresses, jewels that sparkled under the lights, and empty conversations that echoed through the corridors like meaningless white noise. Marcus circulated among the guests with a rehearsed smile, shaking hands and accepting congratulations for the magnificent acquisition. But his eyes incessantly searched for Eleanor in the mansion's shadowy corners. She had promised she would be there, watching from afar, but until that moment she had given no sign of her presence, and her absence transformed that triumphant party into a hollow and meaningless experience. The guests admired the architecture, took selfies before the historic stained glass, drank French champagne from crystal glasses, completely oblivious to the fact they were treading on sacred territory in a sanctuary of true love that transcended their materialistic comprehensions. Marcus felt like a traitor, as if he had sold something precious and irreplaceable for social approval and networking, a breathtaking feeling of emptiness that all the money in the world couldn't fill. It was exactly at midnight, when Marcus climbed onto the improvised stage to give his speech, that everything changed in a spectacular and unforgettable way. The lights flickered once, then twice, and suddenly the entire mansion plunged into absolute darkness that made guests scream in surprise and confusion. When the power returned seconds later, Eleanor was there. Not the 60-year-old lady Marcus had met, but the radiant young woman from 1899, in her petrol blue ball gown and hair pinned in elaborate curls that framed her luminous face. The vision was so impossible, so heartwarming and absolutely surreal, that silence fell over the crowd like snow on an empty field, all eyes fixed on that apparition that didn't belong to the 21st century. Eleanor began to walk through the room with supernatural grace, her steps seeming to float over the wooden floor, and then, to the absolute shock of everyone present, she extended her hand to Marcus and said with a voice that seemed to come from another dimension, "You returned my house to me. Now let me show you what is truly valuable in this life. One last dance before time separates us definitively." Marcus didn't think, didn't hesitate. He simply took Eleanor's hand and let himself be guided to the center of the hall, where they began to dance a waltz that no one else could hear but the two of them. The guests watched open-mouthed at that impossible scene, a modern billionaire dancing with a 19th century ghost, their movements perfectly synchronized, as if they had rehearsed that dance for an entire lifetime, or perhaps several lifetimes. As they spun through the hall, Marcus felt something break inside him. All the barriers he had built, all the armor of cynicism and pragmatism he used to navigate the business world, crumbled like sandcastles before the tide. Eleanor whispered in his ear, "Do you understand now? I didn't stay trapped here out of sadness or resentment. I stayed because true love knows no time, doesn't respect death, doesn't bow before the impossible. This house isn't a prison. It's a testament that some feelings are so powerful they rewrite reality's very laws. It was a declaration of love not just to a person, but to the very idea that there are things in this world worth more than any bank account, any property deed, any measurable success. And that revelation transformed Marcus in a way no business acquisition ever could. Chapter 5. When the music that only they could hear finally ceased, Eleanor began to fade slowly, her brilliant form becoming translucent like morning mist. And Marcus realized with a tightening in his heart that this would be their goodbye. "Eleanor, no," he whispered desperately, squeezing the hand he could no longer fully feel, experiencing for the first time in his adult life that feeling of absolute helplessness that comes when you find something irreplaceable and realize you can't possess it, keep it, or control it. She smiled with a tenderness that seemed to contain all the emotions of more than a century compressed into a single moment, and then said the words that would echo in his mind for all the remaining days of his existence. "You freed me, Marcus. Don't you see? For 126 years I waited for someone who would understand the true value of this house, not in money, but in love, in memory, in history. You didn't buy it to destroy or renovate it beyond recognition. You honored it, and by doing so, you completed the cycle that kept me here." It was a touching and at the same time devastating revelation, because Marcus finally understood that the true purpose of that encounter was never about him owning the mansion, but about him being the instrument of Eleanor's liberation. A lesson in humility and purpose that would completely transform his life perspective. The party guests, still in a state of collective shock, began to whisper theories and explanations ranging from rational to absurd, sophisticated holograms, illusionism tricks hired by Marcus, even collective hysteria caused by something in the drinks. But Marcus knew the truth in every cell of his body. He had witnessed a miracle, had danced with a soul that defied time for love, had been chosen to be part of an impossible love story that transcended anything that could be explained by science or logic. In the days that followed, while social media exploded with viral videos of the BT's most mysterious party of the year, Marcus made a decision that shocked everyone who knew him. He cancelled all his business commitments indefinitely and dedicated himself to thoroughly researching Eleanor's story and her lost love. He discovered records of love letters kept in municipal archives, found descendants of the family who told stories passed down through generations about the bride who disappeared on the most important night of her life, even located the grave of the deceased groom, a young man named Thomas Ashford, and Marcus shivered upon realizing they shared the surname, suggesting destiny connections that went far beyond coincidence. Willowbrook Mansion never hosted another party, but transformed into something much more significant under Marcus's administration. He converted it into a museum dedicated to true love stories, a space where couples could renew vows, where old love letters were preserved and exhibited, where the happy ending that Eleanor never had in life became inspiration for thousands of people who visited the place annually. Marcus hired historians to document every detail of Eleanor's life, artists to create installations celebrating her story, and on a bronze plaque installed in the main hall, he engraved the words that summarized everything he had learned. This house belonged to Eleanor Whitmore, who taught us that true love is not measured in years lived together, but in the intensity with which we choose to honor those we love, even when time, death, or reality itself tries to separate us. She guarded this property for over a century, not out of material attachment, but because some places become sacred when they witness promises that transcend mortality. At night, when Marcus walked alone through the mansion's silent corridors, He sometimes swore he felt a gentle breeze that didn't come from any open window, saw a reflection in the stained glass that looked like a young woman in a petrol blue dress, and in those moments he would smile and whisper, "Thank you." Because Eleanor hadn't just shown him a supernatural mystery, she had given him something much more valuable, the understanding that true wealth isn't in what we possess, but in what we're willing to protect, honor, and love without expectation of return. In a second chance at love story, he now lived through the legacy he chose to preserve. After knowing the breathtaking story of Marcus and Eleanor, do you still believe that true love is limited by time, logic, or the circumstances you face today? This isn't just an impossible love story between a billionaire and a ghost. It's a call for you to completely rethink what truly matters in your life at this exact moment. How many times have you chosen money over meaning, convenience over genuine connection, or simply let opportunities pass to create something truly unforgettable because it seemed too impossible? Marcus had everything, but only found purpose when he had the courage to honor a story that transcended his understanding. And you, what are you willing to honor in your life? What legacy do you want to leave that will make people remember you for generations, as Eleanor is remembered through that mansion transformed into a love sanctuary? I want to know, what is your Willowbrook mansion, that precious thing in your life that deserves to be protected, celebrated, and transformed into something greater than yourself? Share your answer in the comments, because true love stories, whether for people, purposes, or passions, deserve to be told and celebrated. And if this story touched your heart the way it touched mine while narrating it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell, because every week I bring emotional stories of second chances at love, impossible reunions, and happy endings that will make you believe that destiny truly exists and that soulmate isn't fantasy. It's a choice to honor love in all its impossible, touching, and absolutely transformative forms.